Good evening. Welcome to Valdosta State University and a conversation with Misty Copeland. I am Wayne Plumley, the Dean of the Langdale College of Business, and to my left over here is Blake Pierce, the Dean of the College of the Arts, and the young person standing next to him is a young ballerina. And we would like to thank our sponsors for tonight's events, the Scruggs Company, E-Lead One, Fresh Beginnings, Coleman Talley Attorneys, Farmers and Merchants Bank, and Southern Pediatric Clinic. Let's give them a round of applause for bringing this together. Dean Pierce.
Thank you, Dr. Plumley. Good evening, and I extend greetings on behalf of the faculty, staff, and students of the College of the Arts here at Valdosta State University. We're delighted to have you here as our guest this evening. I want to thank Dr. Plumley and our partners in the Langdale College of Business Administration for allowing us to be partners in this endeavor. I also want to echo his sentiments thanking our sponsors for making this event possible. We're really excited to have Misty Copeland here. We had the opportunity to have her on campus a little earlier today. She spent some time with our dance majors, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think everybody had a pretty good time? That's great, that's great. It's always a pleasure to meet a great artist. It's a rare opportunity to meet an artist that's not only made an incredible impact in their field, but they've affected the discipline in a way that causes it to ask questions of what it is, what it can become, and what future it can give to the world. And Misty Copeland is that kind of artist. You noticed, and so we're thrilled to have her here this evening. You're going to really enjoy the presentation. You saw a trailer for a film, A Ballerina's Tale, before this event. That film will be shown in the Student Union Theater on Saturday, April 14th at 7:30. It's free for students with an ID. Thank you so much for being here, and we hope you have a great evening.
Good evening. My name is Maddie Smith, and I have been a ballerina for 4 years. I was first introduced to Misty Copeland a few years ago while I was studying the artist Edgar Degas. He painted ballerinas in the late 1800s. While I was looking up images of his work, I came across the most beautiful photographs of a ballerina that I would soon grow to love. It was Misty Copeland. She had reenacted each picture and really made them come to life. I was instantly captivated and wanted to know more about her. I was so excited to find her book, Life in Motion, at the library. I even did a presentation in her own class. There are not many African American dancers in the studio where I dance. I'm only one of a few. None of my teachers look like me either. It is so encouraging to see Misty paving the way for African American dancers. She inspires me to work hard so that I can be just like her. I am so excited to meet her in person tonight and hope to one day have the opportunity to see her dance live.
Thank you, Maddie. Would you please escort our honored guests out to the chairs, please?
Until the applause died, because I was certain it was not for me. This is a great night for Valdosta, isn't it? I've had a great time today showing Misty around, and I was told to prepare questions for this talk with her. And as I'm walking here, I thought, gosh, Misty, you've spent the better part of a day here. You've met some of Valdosta's finest. What do you think about our city?
I haven't seen much of the city, but the people are incredible. And
Well-
I'm so happy and so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to you, Dean Copeland and Dean Plumley. Thank you so much for bringing me here, and it's amazing.
So there's the shout out to Valdosta that we've been waiting for. Thank you so much for that, Misty. So let's get down to business.
Okay.
You've had wonderful mentors over the course of your career and during your teen years. We've got a bunch of young people here. Just tell us how they should choose a mentor to look for guidance.
Yeah, so for me, I don't think I really was introduced to that word or understood the power of it from a young age. I don't think until I was really a professional and living on my own in New York City that I really understood how I could benefit from having someone to help guide me. As most dancers know, you go off to become a professional between the ages of 16 and 19, which is extremely young, to be thrust into a big city like I was in New York City at 17 years old, and I was there on my own. I didn't have my parents, and I was just kind of, told like, okay, you're a professional, take care of yourself. And I think that was when I really started to understand how I could benefit from having a mentor in my life. But I think that as young people, it's also our responsibility, I think, to reach out and find people that we look up to, that can encourage us and motivate us, whether they're people you actually get to meet and interact with, or they're just people that you can learn about that will motivate you. But I think there are so many ways of finding mentors, and I've had so many that have been both, through actual interaction and then through people that I was just learning about that have given me so much power and courage to do what I do.
And taking from that, you've done much work for the Boys and Girls Club of
Yes.
America.
Yeah.
In fact, you're in the Hall of Fame. So not only am I sitting with the prima ballerina, I'm sitting with a Hall of Famer. So tell us about your work with the Boys and Girls Club.
I mean, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be a ballerina with American Ballet Theater if it weren't for the Boys and Girls Club. I grew up in San Pedro, California, in Southern California, and I'm one of 6 children. I grew up in a single-parent home, often in an underprivileged community, really just struggling to get by. And the Boys and Girls Club was always that constant place. There was like a second home for me and my siblings that we could go to after school when my mother was working many jobs, and I loved the Boys and Girls Club. I was very active. I loved to play basketball. I loved to make weird things in the wood shop, and I was really good at pool, but it wasn't, I beat like grown men, like all the time when I was like 7 years old. But my real claim to fame was ballet. When I was 13 years old, a local ballet teacher came into the Boys and Girls Club and was looking for diverse students to give scholarships to that wouldn't have had an opportunity to be exposed to classical ballet, and I happened to be one of those students, and it completely changed my life. I took my first ballet class on a basketball court in socks and shorts and a t-shirt. And my teacher looked at me and she said, "I think you're a prodigy," and she brought me into her ballet school in full scholarship. So I feel like I'm forever indebted and so grateful to the Boys and Girls Club. So they're just such a part of me, and so whenever I'm traveling, no matter where I am across the United States, I try and find a club in that state and visit and talk to the kids, and so yes.
And you found them today. They were here, and they had a great time. I think some of them are still here.
I know, they made me such cute shirts.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
So in your book, Life in Motion, you write that ballet teaches many things. It teaches discipline. It teaches poise. What else does it teach?
You know, I feel like whether it's a professional athlete or a child that just needs to have a release of so much energy, I feel like so many people can benefit from being a part of not just ballet, but the arts, the fine arts, dance. In some way, I don't think that I would have become who I am had I not been exposed to it. Just, you know, as an example, you know, again, I grew up in a single parent home, and I never really connected or with my school. In public school, like, I was extremely shy. I never really spoke. I think I was really underdeveloped in a way that I should have been. You know, I should have been much more developed at 13 years old, and I feel like the missing link was art, and it was dance, and I feel like it awakened so many things in my cognitive skills in my brain that I didn't have, you know, outside of being exposed to the arts. So I just feel like it can benefit people in so many ways. I feel like it's taught me to be confident, to accept and love who I am. For the first time, I felt beautiful when I entered the ballet world. Mm-hmm. You know, before ballet, I was just this scrawny little girl with big feet and a little head. And and I went into the ballet world, and it was like, wow, all of these characteristics, all of these things about you, they're perfect for ballet, and you're beautiful. And there were so many things that I never had that type of confidence. And I feel like it's made me into an incredible, caring and giving and nurturing person.
So I look at you and I'm thinking there's something really interesting, just changing gears. Do you still sew?
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Tell us how you picked that art up. That's part of your artistry that many people don't hear about.
Yeah, I guess I was an interesting and different child growing up. I definitely was not like any of my other siblings. Again, you know, they were all extremely outgoing and had loud voices, and I kind of hid in a corner and would do things like listen to Mariah Carey and create choreography. And so, yeah, and I don't know, it's just, I think as a child, there was so much chaos in my home. My mother divorced many times. We moved from place to place. I was in different schools many times, and I think I needed some type of structure, and I think that's why I was so, I fell in love with ballet so quickly. I think that it was something that I was lacking in my life, and I think something about sewing and all of that, there's just like a discipline and a structure to it that I needed in my life. But I think every ballerina sews. We have to sew our ribbons on our pointe shoes, and but I was doing it before I was a dancer. I was like mending my brother's clothes and making their hems and sewing on their buttons, and I don't know what it was. It was just
I learned from firsthand experience that you like structure. Today, you're telling me, let's get this thing going, Roy. You're too laid back. I didn't think you wanted structure, something different. This is Valdosta.
I definitely like structure, no matter where I am.
So, you know, you say ballet isn't just about strength. It's just not about ability. You must look the part. Mm-hmm. You know, how so?
So, I've had a very different experience when it comes to that. You know, from a young age, I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. I grew up in Southern California, and the ballet studio that I was introduced to was very small and very tight-knit, and race was not something that ever came up. I was very aware of that before I entered the ballet world, you know, coming from a biracial background. My mother made it very clear that I am biracial, but I will be seen by the world as a black woman. So that was something that I was very conscious of. But when I entered the ballet world, it was like I was this fairy. I was this amazing imaginary, like I was living in this fairy tale. And so race was not at all something that came up. But I was told, you know, you have this ideal, physique, and you have the right body proportions. And then I entered the professional ballet world in New York City, and I was like, wow, I'm in a company of 80 dancers, and I'm the only black woman. And that went on for a decade. And that was when I realized I don't look the part. And it wasn't just about the fact that I was capable and I had the right abilities and I had the right body proportion. There was this underlining thing that exists in the ballet world, which is you don't have the right skin color. And it's something that I've dealt with my entire professional career, and it's something that I speak so openly about because I feel like it's an issue, and it's something that needs to change in the ballet world. I think there are so many brown, black, minority dancers that look the part and have the right body proportions and have, the right physique, and they're told no because they don't have the right skin color.
But you're changing that.
I hope so.
You are.
I talk about it a lot.
You do. And that's appreciated.
In hopes of changing it.
And I think you're making some inroads. Let's talk about a ballerina's body, and this is kind of directed toward our students. You mentioned something about a vision board. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about the significance of the vision board, what it means.
Yeah. It's something that's always helped me, again, being someone that felt most comfortable when I was expressing myself through my body, not through my voice. And it was easiest and most cathartic for me to write, which I've been doing since I was, 14 years old. And also to just kind of visualize. I think as dancers and as artists, it's really easy for us to visualize what it is we want and what it is we want to do and what we want our future to be. And so I think it's really helpful for anyone to be able to kind of put that onto paper, and it kind of makes it something that you can look at every day, and it becomes a part of your subconscious, and then it becomes a reality. So I think it's something that's really helpful for everyone to be able to do, is to put something to paper, something visual that they can look at that's like a constant reminder of what it is they want to succeed in.
I started reading these various blogs about you and your contribution.
Oh no. What did you read? Okay. I hope they were positive.
No.
Okay.
And the world is expanding, and one of the critiques was that you're letting too many people in. Ballet's an art form. Should it be limited in any way?
That, I think, is why people say it's dying. It just doesn't make any sense to me. They want to do outreach programs, and they want to still be relevant. So you can't exclude people. You can't exclude a certain group of people if you want it to continue to grow and to be relevant. We learn and we grow from being diverse. That's why the United States, that's why America is the strongest and best country, because we are the most diverse. And so no, I don't agree with that.
Okay, so you suffered your first major injury, I presume, immediately after your first performance of Firebird. Is that correct?
Maybe my second worst injury.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was a lower lumbar fracture, which is
So that was my
pretty major?
first injury. When I was 19 years old, I had a stress fracture in my lower lumbar of my spine, and I was out for a year. My second really most dancers have lots of injuries. I've had many. And then my second really major injury was, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And that was to my left tibia.
That's
And
right.
I had 6 stress fractures, and 3 of them were called dreaded black line fractures. So they were almost full breaks through the bone. So I have a plate now in my left shin. And that was, I think, just at such a critical time in my career.
Right.
And yeah.
And that was talked about in your short film, I believe, the tibia injury.
Yeah, right.
And my point is, physically, I understand how the body might overcome those. How do you, as a ballerina, psychologically overcome the impact of major injuries?
Yeah, I think physically it's just as much as it is psychologically. I think especially the older you get. The first injury I had, I was 19 years old. So even then, a fracture is something that may not ever heal. And luckily, mine did heal at that age. But the one that I experienced in my shin was when I was 29 years old. So that's usually like, it's kind of, you know, I saw maybe 8 doctors and 7 of them said, sorry, you're not gonna dance again. And if you do, you're never gonna get back to where you are. So, I mean, that shows you that, you know, the body just doesn't heal in the way that, that it does when you're younger, you know, from something like that. And I was lucky enough to find a doctor that said, you will dance again. And I was like, you're the man, I'm gonna go with you. But I mean, yes, so, you know, physically, you know, I just kind of was like, I hope this works and I'm just gonna be positive. But yeah, psychologically and emotionally and mentally, I think it goes hand in hand with the physical, you know, healing. And that's something that I feel like I learned throughout the course of my career with all of the injuries that I had. But it's so important, I think, to stay mentally positive and just striving every day and not let yourself get down. And, you know, of course I had those days, but I had an amazing support system again. And, you know, one of my angels is my floor bar teacher that I met, you know, right before I had my surgery. And we were she would come to my apartment and, you know, I couldn't walk and she would like help me roll out of bed, and we would do a floor bar, which is a ballet bar without standing. And so I did that for maybe 6 months, and I would lay on my back and on my stomach and on my side, and I would do a full-on ballet class. So I was keeping my body in the right, you know, technique and strength that it needed to be, but also it just kept me mentally stimulated and motivated.
So amongst athletes and high performers, they get into this zone. And I think in one of your books you talk about almost like being in a trance.
Yeah.
You know, how do you know you're there?
I think you realize you're not there when you like snap out of it and you're like, oh my God, I'm on stage, I'm freaking out.
You freak out on stage?
I mean, I've had like very like minimal times that's happened, and I feel like that's happened because of getting too caught up in negative feedback. But I'd say the majority of the time that I'm on stage, I think I am in that trance, that I'm so present and in the moment that, you know, ballet is so much more than just the technique that we practice every day. But it's becoming a character and it's taking on these roles, and I feel like that's a strength of mine that I've learned the older that I've got. But yes, I've had moments when I've, you know, been so caught up in, you know, what people think of me and you know, reviews and things that are written, and I've had those moments, maybe a handful of times, when I'm on the stage and I'm like, oh my God, that crazy critic might be watching me right now and they're gonna write something horrible, and you're removed from your body. But I'd say for the most part that I'm pretty present.
So your brother Chris,
Chris Copeland.
he made this comment to you. He says,
gosh.
Misty, dancers use their bodies, not their brains. And that kind of propelled you. And
Oh, yeah.
you say that you sometimes reflect on that, and that motivates you. When you have several siblings, of course, they say things all the time. And
Right.
I'm sure you've used some of those comments to kind of laugh about.
Right.
In
And to
retrospect, they are funny.
Right, yeah. That's something that's stuck with me, and you know, something that I've learned from my path and my experience of having a family that didn't grow up knowing and being educated in the ballet world, or what it was to raise and nurture a ballet dancer. We were all, you know, extremely naive and green when I entered into the ballet world at 13 years old. And so I understand now, looking back, you know, why my brothers may have reacted in a certain way, and you know, and have made those comments that, you know, we're not as physical as athletes, and we're not using our brains, and so that's something that stuck with me. But I feel like it's like a part of my mission and a part of why I helped to create this diversity initiative with American Ballet Theater and the Boys and Girls Clubs called Project Plie, because I think it's important not just to diversify and educate our communities and the young people, but also their parents, and to bring in teachers that represent us in our communities and look like us, so that it's very well-rounded, and that everyone understands what it takes to create a dancer and an artist.
So you spend a significant portion of your life trying to get to the ABT. and at one point you considered leaving. There was
Yeah.
this temptation from the Dance Theater of Harlem. Why'd you decide not to go?
It was an extremely difficult time as a young person. Again, I feel like my family didn't really understand, what it took and what it was I was really doing. I left, I think the day after I graduated high school. I was 17. I moved to New York City and became a professional, was taking care of myself. And I feel like I just didn't have a lot of support there in the city, and I was just kind of on my own. And it's hard, I think, as a young person when you are trying to figure out who you are and who you want to be, and you are literally surrounded by no one who has anything in common with you. And that's kind of where I was when I entered into ABT. And so I definitely had those doubts, like why am I any more special than any other black dancer that's come into this company? Why would I ever get an opportunity to go beyond the court of ballet? And then Arthur Mitchell called me, who is the artistic director and founder of Dance Theater of Harlem, and he invited me to come take class with his company. And then we met afterwards, and he offered me a soloist contract with his company, which was a huge deal. And I definitely considered it, but I felt like ABT has always been my dream and always been my goal. Why should I let that go? I felt like it was kind of giving up and giving in to the ballet world by joining a company of black dancers and being comfortable and being surrounded by people that looked like me. I felt like this is my chance, and I feel like I have a responsibility by being in this company that's a white company to represent us and help open the doors for our future.
Well, I wondered if you knew more, because the dance theater then took a hiatus for several
Well,
years.
that was the crazy thing, too, is that, I don't know, a month after he offered me the contract, then I heard that they were no longer in existence. And I was like, thank God I didn't take that contract. But it was a huge loss to the ballet community, a huge loss.
Well, a huge loss in the sense that, it may have stymied the development of ballet in terms of reaching people that had not reached
And the
before.
diversity, absolutely.
And then you came along, you probably transcended that.
Well, I mean, I think it would have been helpful had they been in existence still. It was extremely difficult, I think, to have this company that there is no other company like them.
Right.
What Arthur created was a space for black dancers to go and grow and have a professional career when no other company was giving them that opportunity. But I feel like now we have an opportunity to have a company like that, but to also enter into other companies and be able to be given an opportunity.
Well, there's Misty Copeland, and there's Misty Copeland, the ballerina. And just in reading about you and talking to you, they're two kind of different people. Talk to us about that, because in the one sense, they're Misty Copeland, the ballerina superstar, and then there's this woman who's gorgeous, who's in these commercials, and I don't really think of you as a ballerina when I see you in those. And then you're in these fashion magazines, and that's another Misty Copeland.
Okay. I don't think I've ever thought of myself in those ways, but
You haven't?
no, I mean, I see myself as like a performer and then who I am in my everyday life.
Right.
But, I think that I just feel so grateful for all of the opportunities that I have and all of the incredible platforms that I've been given to bring ballet to more people and to speak about the lack of diversity. And, I'm a performer, and I feel like when I have to be on, I am on. But in my everyday life, I feel like I'm very relaxed and very, quiet. And I like to be at home cooking and listening to like Sade or Drake and and not really, and so I don't know. I feel like I definitely have like a good balance in my life and an amazing husband that understands all of those crazy aspects and all of me.
So I was curious, you suffered migraines for a big part of your teenage years.
Yeah, I
and
haven't talked about that in so long.
suddenly they went away.
Yeah.
Was that because you'd achieved this pinnacle almost? Or you
No,
almost there?
absolutely not. No.
With no medication,
Yeah.
no physician's
interesting.
intervention, they vanished.
Yeah. I feel like growing up in such a chaotic atmosphere as a child, like from the time I can remember life, we were moving, there was fighting, there was divorce, there was, just struggling to survive, living in a motel, when are we gonna eat tonight? And so I feel like that became the norm, and I never felt like we were any different from anyone else, or that our lives were strange. Me and my 5 siblings, like we had each other and we were very happy, but it was, I think, very internally stressful for me. And I held that stress in a different way than any of my other siblings. And I had very severe migraines from the age of 7 until 17, to the point of, me having to leave school and just be in a dark room or vomiting. And so it was a big issue when I was leaving home and moving to New York City. My mother had conversations with my artistic director, like, there may be times when she can't perform because she might be throwing up. And we were like, okay. And for some reason, when I moved to New York City, it was like they literally just disappeared. And I feel like that type of stress just left my life.
So you're this great ballerina. I've just got this question that's burning inside me. And I mentioned this to Cheryl, and she says, I don't know, Roy, you're a great ballerina, but can you jam?
Can I jam? What do you mean by jam?
Dance.
I say so. I mean, I've always danced, since before I was training. So I would say so.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not the girl that's like in a club and I'm like in the middle of the dance floor with everyone around me. Like, that's not me.
So we're gonna see if she can jam.
No!
Strike the music up. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. So, you have this brilliant performance, Firebird. Is Firebird your favorite?
No.
It's not? It's difficult, though.
No, I mean, it definitely, what it represents and what it did for my career is unbelievable. And I feel like that's why it holds such an amazing place in my heart, and with the community that knows my story, and why it motivated me to write the children's book, which is not based on the ballet, but based on just my experience of my relationship with Raven Wilkinson, who's an amazing African-American ballerina, who's a mentor of mine. But no, it's extremely physical and extremely difficult, and it's actually how I got my injury.
Yeah, that's right. So you have this brilliant performance in Firebird. There were several New York Times pieces, and one says, quote, you should be promoted for artistic reasons as well as political reasons. Political reasons? That struck me as an odd comment.
Yeah, it's a very interesting and difficult position to be in, especially in the age that we live in today, where everyone is a critic, everyone's a journalist, and everyone has an opinion on social media. So I understand that some people feel like, okay, there's been enough time. There has to be a black dancer to become a principal ballerina in a major ballet company. So even if it's for political reasons, we should do it. And I never necessarily believed that, and I feel like because of my slow rise and not meeting my manager until I was, 27, 28 years old, that people don't really understand the long journey and path I've been on. I've been in American Ballet Theater for 18 years, and that's a very unusual amount of time that someone spends, and the slow rise that dancers, most dancers, if you're going to be a principal dancer, you're probably a principal dancer within the first 10 years of your time in a company. So for people to say, that I've been promoted, which people say I've been promoted for political reasons, it just doesn't make sense. 18 years later.
So you perform with Prince.
Yes.
And when you perform with Prince, there were those who said, well, she's expanding ballet, but this may be a mite too far. Mm-hmm. What was your reaction to that?
I think that at some point, Well, first of all, again, I've never fit into the mold of what's expected in ballet, and so I feel like I've allowed myself to dream and to know that my path isn't going to be like anyone else's. So when Prince reached out to me, of course I was curious, and I was like, why is he calling me? Like, what am I gonna do with him? And so I ended up filming a music video with him, and we got to know each other over the course of like 5 years, and I ended up traveling the world with him and going on tour whenever I wasn't dancing with ABT, and I just felt like, getting on the stage with him and seeing him as an artist and seeing how much he respected other artists and all of the, the work that he did to find out about in ways to enrich who he was as an artist. He was very open to doing research about other people, and I just had so much respect for him, and I just felt like for me to be on stage with him, I'm reaching such a diverse and different audience than who might be coming to the Metropolitan Opera House. And I feel like it definitely paid off because it's been, 10 years. And to this day, I still meet people that come to me and say, the first time I saw you dance was with Prince at Madison Square Garden, and now I subscribe to American Ballet Theater and I come all of the time. And it's like, that's why I wanted to do what I did. And I didn't care if there were some people that just didn't get it and that were going to be ballet snobs and say, like, you shouldn't be dancing with, this pop rock star. And I feel like in the long term, like, it's reaching more people, and I feel like that's so much part of my mission.
And your mother was really happy, too.
Yes, my mother is a big Prince fan.
So, you're really athletic, you're graceful, and there's a lot of discussion about this whole idea or dichotomy, I guess, between classical ballet and modern day ballet. Talk to us about the difference and how they're different and how at some points they merge.
I think that the ballet technique is something that's so smart and so brilliant that it's stayed the same for hundreds of years.
Right.
But I feel like in terms of the body types and the people that are involved and choreography, like, that's something that's ever evolving. And so I don't feel like we're really stuck in any way. I feel like we learn from bringing those things together, whether it's having more contemporary works, and a lot of the more contemporary works are more athletic, so it changes the way the ballerina's body is. I think that's something that's ever evolving, which is why it's so crazy when people just have this idea in their head that, dancers don't eat and they're all extremely thin, and they're, it's something, if you look at dancers in Degas paintings, they were very full and soft and feminine and had breasts, and then, it's something that changes and evolves with choreography. And so I think that just reflects, again, like, where we are and bringing different types of dance together. And I think it's beautiful, and it's where ballet is headed.
I realize that you're truly committed to your art because we set this schedule up for you, and Gilda, your manager, calls and she says, Misty wants to practice with the students in the dance department. And I said, practice? She's not going to talk. No, she wants to work out with them. We're really happy that you did that, and that spoke volumes in terms of your commitment to your profession and to young people. So you had this affinity for Krispy Kreme donuts?
I didn't know that was where you were going. Yeah. So again, growing up the way that I did, that nutrition and diet was not something that I was ever taught. Again, it was, what we could afford and what was available to us. So that was never something that I thought about. And as a dancer and as an athlete, it's so extremely important to think about how you're fueling your body. And I don't think I really understood that until I moved to New York City and was living on my own, and hitting puberty and my body changing all of a sudden when I was a professional dancer, and realizing I can't eat Flamin' Hot Cheetos and hot dogs and look the way, I did. I went through a really tough time with my company where I was being pulled aside, week after week and being told to lengthen, to lose weight. And I had absolutely no idea how to deal with that. Never in my life. I mean, I was this tiny, skinny little thing my entire life, and now all of a sudden I was too big. And I had no idea how to deal with that. I didn't have anyone around me that was there to support me or tell me how to take care of myself. And so instead of, I think what most people would think a dancer would do, which is to have an eating disorder, I would go to Krispy Kreme. and it became this emotional outlet where I would go home and I was too embarrassed to walk into Krispy Kreme because in my mind I was thinking, everyone's thinking, why is this big ballerina eating a dozen Krispy Kremes? So I ended up calling them, and they said, sorry, ma'am, like we don't deliver to homes, only to corporations. So I hung up and I called back and I was like, this is a corporation. Can I have a dozen Krispy Kreme? And they said, well, you can have 2 dozen because that's our limit. And I was like, okay. And it became this thing that I was doing, that was hurting me in the long run. But something that, it's funny to look back on now, but it took me time of, finding people that were going to be there to support me and help me to, and my husband was a big part of that, and understanding that looking at food in a different way, that I'm an athlete and I need to fuel my body and I need to, it needs to be nutritious and keep me going throughout the day.
So one final question. You've reached the pinnacle of your career by any measure. You've got international acclaim. You started later in ballet than most. And you mentioned this. I was not going to bring this up, but you mentioned age and the fact that as you get older, your body starts declining. Have you thought about the R word as in retirement? And what are you going to do when you finally hang up your point shoes?
I have thought about it probably for the last decade because I've been asked it in interviews for the last decade.
Sorry.
No, you're not the first. It's okay. No, I think that it's normal, and I think that it's good for a professional dancer to be thinking ahead. I think it's been kind of a pattern of professional dancers, and what we do, it's like, oh, you have to be so present, you have to be so dedicated and so focused that all of a sudden you blink and your career's over and you're 30 something or 40 and you're like, what am I going to do next? And I think that it's really healthy and good for us to kind of be thinking about that already as professionals. With that said, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I feel like I have like so many incredible things that I'm so fortunate to be a part of outside of my professional career, but all of it is connected and related to ballet in some way, and I did that intentionally because I feel like it's my purpose, and I feel like I'm here to be a part of the ballet world and to give back and to represent, and so I know that I will forever be a part of helping to continue the conversation about diversifying classical ballet and bringing it to more people, making it as relevant in the United States as it is in Europe, bringing it into more schools. Like, we need to have more arts and dance in public schools, and that's something that I feel so passionately about. I'll continue to write books, and I feel like I'm just going to stay open and let the wind take me wherever it's supposed to.
We've got the provost here. Maybe we can sign you onto a contract with the student arts. Well, Misty, this has been really good. I thank you so much.
Thank you
Dean
so much.
Plumley, Maddie.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a couple of questions, Misty?
Sure, yes.
Okay. We're probably going to limit the questions to a few. She's been on the road a lot. She was in China last week. She was in Columbus, Ohio last night, and we've worn her out in Valdosta, so we can probably take 5 or 6 questions.
Hi, Misty. How you doing?
Good.
I was the lady that was filming you today on the outside.
Oh.
So, I'm from the Central New Jersey Ballet Theater, and I've been following you for years now.
Thank you.
Before you were probably popular. I just want to know, what is your favorite ballet? What is your favorite role that you just love?
Yeah. It's taken me a long time to get to this point of really knowing what I feel like I'm good at. And I think the more that I've been given opportunities to do principal roles, and the more that I'm evolving as a person and as a woman, I feel very passionate about acting on stage, not like with my words. And so Juliet is my absolute favorite role that I've ever performed.
Where were you born?
Oh, okay. So I actually was born in Kansas City, Missouri, but I moved to Southern California when I was 2, so I don't really remember much about it. Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, too. So, I want to know, when you started ballet, who were you looking up to? Like, who were your models?
Yeah, like dance.
And I really love you, too.
When I started dancing at 13, American Ballet Theater was immediately the company that I was introduced to. And so at the time that I started, Paloma Herrera was like on the rise. She was like the biggest star in American ballet. So she was definitely someone that I was like obsessed with. And it's so crazy that I ended up dancing with her for, I don't know, 16 years of my career, and really getting to know her and writing about her in my memoir and having her read it. So it was really crazy. It all came full circle.
What inspired you to dance?
Definitely music. Again, like ballet was not something that I ever was passionate about or was educated about or knew about. So that was not something that was on my radar. So it was definitely, watching MTV and BET and seeing music videos. Like that was literally my only experience and exposure to dance. Like that was all I knew. So, I naturally was creating and choreographing just because I was motivated and inspired by music. And I feel the same way to this day.
I've been dancing for 10 years now, and I danced at ICSB, International City School of Ballet, for like my whole life. And my biggest question is, when you caught yourself getting distracted in achieving your goals, what did you do to refocus yourself in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like the moment that I wasn't completely focused and present, I started to see a decline in like the parts I was given and the opportunities, and so I feel like it was kind of easy for me. Like the moment that I saw like this amazing opportunity slipping away, it was like rethinking like why are you passionate about this? And I think that's something that every dancer should continue to remind themselves, like, why am I doing this? Even as a professional, I think we get kind of caught up in the lifestyle, and we get tired, and we lose motivation. And I think that every so often we have to just remember like why it is we do it. And if you lose that passion and you lose that love, I think you should stop, because then the work is so hard that if you don't enjoy going on stage and performing, it's just not worth it.
What did you love about ballet the most?
Sorry, can you say it again?
What did you love about ballet the most?
There's so much I love about it. I think being a Virgo and just being so crazy and like disciplined, I love everything about it. I love the fact that if you take a day off from class, like you literally feel like you've never danced a day in your life. And just that commitment and that dedication and it just makes you feel like you're a part of something that's so much bigger than you. And I think that's so amazing and beautiful.
If you had a choice, would you rather pick fame or family?
Family, no question. Like that word fame just makes my skin crawl, and I have like I feel no connection to it. Like why I do what I do is not for any of those reasons. Like I think to bring ballet to more people and to bring, and
expand and diversify it, I think is so extremely important, but just to be famous, like it's so empty to me.
Hi, Misty.
Hi.
Hello. Okay. So, as the first African American principal dancer in ABT, you were, placed into a role that obviously you didn't, ask for, to be this role model. So, does the pressure ever get to you that, does it weigh on you, and how so? If so, how do you deal with that?
I never have felt pressure because I don't feel like this is a position that's been like put on me. I feel like it's something that I've taken on myself, and not every dancer has to be a role model, but I feel very comfortable in that position, and so I don't necessarily feel the pressures in that way, and I think it all comes back again to like the criticism of being exposed to social media and things like that tend to put different types of pressures on me. But in terms of being a representation for African American dancers and for ballet dancers in the United States, like I don't feel any pressure. I feel like it's an amazing and beautiful responsibility that I'm happy to have.
Okay, we're going to take one more.
Okay.
Misty, thank you so very much for being you, number one. Two, I am a parent of a dancer, and all of her entire life, she's 4'11". And as a parent, what are some of the words that you can give me to encourage her for all of the times that they have told her no because of her height, one, and because of her muscular body?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That was an amazing last question. Yeah, I mean, I'm 5'2", and I've always been told I'm too muscular and my boobs are too big and my skin is too dark. And to me, I think that especially in the climate of today in terms of the ballet world, where the spotlight is really on us and it's not as closed as it has been. And I feel like this kind of hidden language of saying you don't have the right body or saying you're too short, to me, is you don't have the right skin color. And I think that it's so important to acknowledge and accept that it's beautiful to be an individual and it's beautiful to be different, and that we shouldn't all be the same and try and look the same. And I think it's about finding the right place for you where you're going to be accepted and celebrated and nurtured, and that's the place where you belong. So don't give up. You're going to hear so many no's. Everyone experiences that in life, no matter what career they're in, and it's about persevering and learning from those struggles.